You wake up tired. You commute for an hour. You work 8 hours, sometimes more. You come home exhausted, eat dinner half asleep, and do it again tomorrow. Now, picture a man 20,000 years ago. No alarm clock, no boss, no deadlines. He worked about 15 hours a week. That's not a typo. That's not a guess. Anthropologists actually measured it. So what happened? How did we go from 15-hour work weeks to this? Stick around. This one's going to make you angry. The average American works around 34 hours a week at their job. Add commuting, errands, childcare, side hustles, emails after dinner, and most people are working in some form for 50, 60, even 70 hours a week. We call this normal. We call it grinding. We put it on motivational posters. But here's the question almost nobody asks. Is this actually how humans are supposed to live? Or did we just get stuck here? To answer that, we have to go back, way back, before farms, before cities, before clocks, back to the people who actually had it figured out. In the 1960s, an anthropologist named Richard Lee went to live with the Juhoansi, a hunter-gatherer people in the Kalahari Desert in southern Africa. He expected to find a population on the edge of starvation, working brutally hard just to survive. Instead, he found something that didn't make sense at the time. The adults spent an average of about 15 to 20 hours a week getting food. The rest of their time? Resting, talking, making tools, telling stories, napping in the shade. Around the same time, anthropologist Marshall Solins looked at data like this from hunter-gatherer groups around the world and coined a term for it, the original affluence. His argument was simple, and it broke a core assumption people had held for centuries. We assumed early humans lived in constant scarcity, fighting for survival every waking hour. Solins said, not even close. In many environments, hunter-gatherers had more leisure time than people in industrial societies. Let that sink in. A guy living in the desert with no electricity, no supermarket, and no modern medicine may have had a more relaxed schedule than you.
Let's walk through what an actual day looked like, using patterns anthropologists observed across multiple hunter-gatherer societies, from the Kalahari to the Australian outback to the Amazon. Morning. No rush. Eat something light. Check in with the group. Who's hunting today? Who's gathering? Who's staying back to watch the children or repair tools? Midday. A hunting or gathering trip. But here's the key detail people miss. This wasn't constant grinding labor. It was bursts of effort with long pauses. Track an animal for a while. Rest. Dig for roots. Sit and talk. Dig again. Researchers studying groups like the Hadza in Tanzania found that even on work days, a huge portion of time was spent socializing, resting, or simply moving slowly, not sprinting through tasks like it's a shift at a warehouse. Afternoon. Most groups were back at camp well before sunset, often by early to mid-afternoon. Then what? Storytelling, music, grooming each other's hair, naps, arguments, gossip, teaching kids how to make tools, which doubled as play. Sound familiar? It's basically what you do on a Saturday, except they did it almost every single day. Evening, fire, food, conversation, sleep whenever the body said so, not whenever an alarm clock said so. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Sure, they had free time, but didn't they also almost die all the time? Disease, predators, starvation? Fair point. Life expectancy was lower and risk was real. This isn't claiming hunter-gatherer life was paradise, but here's the distinction that actually matters. The question isn't, was life risk-free? It's, how many hours did survival actually require? And on that specific question, the data is consistent across multiple independent studies in multiple environments, decades apart. Getting enough food took far fewer hours than a modern full-time job. Even accounting for tool-making, cooking, and childcare, total workload in many hunter-gatherer societies still landed lower than the modern average. It's also worth being honest. Not every hunter-gatherer group lived this way. Harsh environments, droughts, and bad seasons could mean much harder periods. Anthropologists still debate the exact numbers, but the broad pattern that abundance didn't require non-stop labor has held up across a lot of independent research. So if hunter-gatherers had it this good, why did humans ever leave that lifestyle?
Around 12,000 years ago, agriculture began spreading across the world, and it changed everything. But maybe not in the direction you'd expect. Farming produced more total food, which let populations grow, but it also demanded far more labor. Plowing, planting, weeding, harvesting, storing, defending the harvest from raiders and rot. Skeletal remains from early farming societies show something striking. More signs of malnutrition, more repetitive strain injuries, and shorter stature compared to hunter-gatherers before them. This is actually why some scientists, like geographer and author Jared Diamond, have called agriculture the worst mistake in human history. Not because farming is bad, but because of what it cost the average person's daily life. More hours worked, worse health, and a population now now too large to ever go back. Once farming could feed more people than foraging, there was no return ticket. More mouths to feed meant more land needed, which meant more labor, which meant more mouths could now be fed. It became a loop with no exit.
Fast forward to the Industrial Revolution. Factories needed predictable labor, workers on a strict schedule, every day for set hours. This is where something we take for granted was actually invented: the clock-based workday. Before this, most people's days were shaped by sunlight, seasons, and tasks, not by a clock on a wall. Suddenly, time itself became something you sold. Early factory workers, including children, sometimes worked 12 to 16-hour days. The 8-hour workday we now consider standard wasn't a gift. It was fought for, through decades of labor strikes and movements, as a reduction from what factories were demanding. So, the 40-hour workweek isn't some natural law of human productivity. It's a relatively recent compromise, a ceiling that replaced something worse, not a floor that reflects what we actually need.
So here's where this leaves us. For most of human history, by far the majority of the roughly 300,000 years modern humans have existed, people worked somewhere around 15 to 20 hours a week to meet their basic needs. The rest of the time went to rest, relationships, art, and stories. Then agriculture increased the workload to feed bigger populations. Industrialization formalized that workload into a clock-punching schedule. And somewhere along the way, busy became a badge of honor instead of a warning sign. This isn't a call to abandon modern life. Nobody's saying go live in the desert. But it is worth knowing, exhaustion isn't the default human setting. It's not just how things are. It's the result of a 12,000-year chain of choices, most of which weren't actually made by you.
Our ancestors weren't lazy. They weren't primitive. In a lot of ways, they understood something about balance that we're still trying to relearn. If this made you see your own schedule differently, let me know in the comments. What would you do with an extra 20 hours a week? Subscribe for more stories about how humans actually lived, not how we assume they lived.